Here's Jacob. He's uploading documents to the cloud and chatting notes to his outside agency partners. This is Zoe. She's rushing to share the customer list with marketing and is sending the latest product roadmap to her mobile device. Which one of them is creating insider risk? They both are. Everyone creates insider risk, sometimes with malicious intent and sometimes just by doing their jobs. Empower productivity and protect your data with Code 42 Insider. Visit securityweekly.com/code42 to learn more. Do you worry about ransomware, data breaches, reputation damage, especially from phishing attacks, on employees working from home? The facts are, top cloud security tools have a 15% failure rate. 51% of phishing is social media based. Pixum knows because Pixum detects and stops breaches at point of click. Pixum's AI real-time solution detects actual fraud happening in a browser and stops it. Know your real security gaps. Get a phishing actualization test free at securityweekly.com/Pixum. That's PIXM. As your attack surface stretches from the data center to the cloud and the device edge, security teams need visibility across it all to confidently detect and respond to threats. Experience frictionless hybrid security that helps you stop breaches 84% faster with ExtraHop's Reveal X360, the first and only SaaS-delivered network detection and response. Explore the interactive demo at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Adrian Sanabria and Tyler Shields. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review suggestions monthly and will reach out to you once reviewed. Oh boy, let's see. It's been 2 weeks since we've done the show, which means there is a ton of enterprise security news. Where do you want to start? IPOs, funding, acquisitions, new products. I mean, we got it all.
Yeah, let's. Maybe we should hit the funding stuff first, the money stuff.
It's always fun to follow the dollar.
It is. Let's start with the two IPOs, right? So 2 IPOs kind of on the verge. And I track the IPO market as part of Business Security Weekly in my Security Money segment. And we got a couple interesting IPOs coming here pretty soon. You know, we knew these were rumored for a while, but there's a lot of news articles in the last couple of weeks. First, Darktrace, planning to go on the London Stock Exchange. They're estimating a $4 billion valuation for that IPO, which is, that's a pretty healthy IPO.
Yeah, that's a good one.
4. And I think we have 3 IPOs, actually. I've got one on mine that I don't think you had on yours.
Oh, I missed one.
The Darktrace IPO makes me laugh because I never, ever watch car racing, and I happened to be flipping through the channels this weekend and turned on Formula One, and sure enough, there's a car and team sponsored by Darktrace, and cybersecurity has just gotten out of control if they're sponsoring Formula One cars.
Oh, yes. CrowdStrike is all over Formula One. Yeah, right on Lewis Hamilton's helmet, he's got CrowdStrike on both sides.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I think Hamilton won this race, and I didn't even notice that, but I noticed the Darktrace one. I guess they had better marketing.
He got second.
Better placement.
Second. He was lucky to get second, too. Verstappen won.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know you were an F1 guy. There we go.
Yeah. We should stop that pretty quick. We got a lot of news.
Yeah, but what you see there is CrowdStrike, definitely has a higher valuation. But Darktrace, they're thinking $4 billion for this one. So it'll be interesting to watch because I track this market. The other one that popped up then is Knowbe4, right? Because Knowbe4, KKR-backed, is also planning an IPO, and their valuation is estimated around $3 billion. So a little smaller than Darktrace's, but there's 2 big IPO announcements, and I guess Adrian, I missed one.
Yeah, Cellebrite is going to blank check route, the SPAC route. And they're looking for a $2.4 billion deal.
Wow. I mean, when I set the threshold for the Security Weekly Index 25, it had to be $1 billion or higher, right? And there were a couple in the public market that don't hit that billion market cap. Like Tufin doesn't hit the billion market cap. I think SecureWorks is right around that $1 billion. And here you have 3 new IPOs. Yeah. All well above $1 billion valuation.
And that's the reason you see SecureWorks scrambling towards more of a product company. Now they're really pushing they've got an EDR product, a vulnerability management product. So they're really, looking to flip the balance between services and product there to go after that higher valuation, I think.
Yeah.
I'd be a little bit concerned on the Cellebrite one, though, is I think they're a little late to the SPAC game. I think we've passed max SPAC, and I think it's a downward trend over there. So I would be a little bit leery on that one in particular. But, plus I've honestly never heard of them. It's one of the few unicorns that I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't
Cellebrite?
know them. I research, yeah. And that just might
Cellebrite,
be my lack of focus, I guess.
Yeah, they do forensic acquisition. So most of the time you hear about like I think it was them back when the FBI was trying to get into terrorist iPhone and Apple said no. I think they used Cellebrite to get into it.
That's right. Now I remember who they are. They compete with what was it? Who was it? Intrust or whatever. They used to have I think it was Intrust. I don't know. I'm probably getting all my forensic stuff confused.
They're pretty much the standard. I mean, you can call up Cellebrite. They'll send you this huge kit. It's got all the dongles and adapters, and like in a Pelican case that you can, take in the field with you to acquire cell phone images, break the encryption on them. It has all the tricks and tools to get around the automatically entering PIN codes and stuff like that. All that stuff.
Wow, sounds awesome. Founded in '99, Israeli-based. Yeah, so just goes to show you it's impossible to know every single unicorn these days.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we tracking, Adrian? Close to 3,000 security vendors in the space now? Something like that? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's and one of the news items I have in here is actually Crunchbase put together a market report for cybersecurity for 2020, which has some interesting highlights here. 7.8 billion invested in 2020 for the industry globally. The pandemic did not slow it down. It's a record year, and yeah, there's some interesting bullet points in there. I included them in the show notes there. And Israel is the second leading country in the industry. Over 20% of venture funding went to Israeli cybersecurity companies in 2020.
Yeah,
a full fifth.
The stat that blew my mind on this one was in just the first 3 or 4 months of 2021, 9 new cybersecurity unicorns have already emerged in just Q1 of this year. That's absolutely insane how fast the valuations are skyrocketing.
9 already, and there were only 6 last year.
Right, and we beat it. We, crushed it in 1 quarter this year.
Wow.
Yeah, people keep talking about a bubble in cybersecurity, but I don't think it's bursting this year or next.
Yeah. No, I mean, only bubble once it bursts, right?
Right. But I mean, if you think about the pandemic, what it did is it put more pressure on organizations to secure their workforce in a very different way. You couldn't skimp on security last year. Otherwise, some of these companies would be potentially just toast, right? So regardless of whether you're on-prem or in the cloud or at home or wherever, security still is going to be an important part of that discussion. And so we saw a little bit of a dip, I think like in Q2, Q3 last year, but man, we've been full force ever since. I mean, it recovered very quickly and continues to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the pandemic really exacerbated the shift to cloud, transformation, digital transformation, like all those terms that really had companies, they were taking slow or even semi-fast approaches to those kind of things, and it made that go 10 times faster. So anybody that was well positioned in those areas, so cloud security companies, API security companies, AppSec companies, they just saw 50, 70, 100% valuation jumps year over year.
Yeah, and you'll see that in some of the other news announcements we have later. They're very focused around, cloud and the internet and application, et cetera.
Yeah, hopefully we didn't burn out too many developers and security folks last year. I mean, just think about what it would have been like to work at Zoom through 2020.
Yeah, or Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, bunch of funding announcements in here. Let's see. Druva raises $147 million in a new funding round. You said that's Series H. It's a lot of funding rounds.
H, off the top of your head, how many letters through the alphabet is H? Like, I had to count on my fingers. It's 8, by the way.
Yeah, 8 rounds. Wow. Put some
Starting in 2010. Yeah.
Oh, since 2010?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 8 rounds in 11 years, so under what, 18 months per, so that's pretty standard, but holy smokes, their dilution's got to be absolutely crazy by this point, taking in 8 rounds.
There had to have been some recapitalization or restructuring going on at some point there, because it's $500 million in funding with a $2 billion valuation. Like that's not a good dynamic there. If that's all new funding, if that's all split in the pie.
Yeah.
Let's see. Grip Security raises $6 million to improve SaaS security. There we go. Software as a service security back to the application.
I'm excited about this one. I typically get excited about Weil Ventures ones, and not just because I've worked closely with them in the past. I covered a lot of their early investments back when I was at 451 Research. But I'm excited about it because I was one of the first analysts to cover CASB really closely, and that market played out. It burned very bright and very quickly, and I don't think they're positioning themselves as CASB, but they're basically going after the same challenges, that kind of still aren't solved. There's a lot of awkward stuff you had to do with CASB. Like if you had one big SaaS like Salesforce, and you really needed to do certain things with it, with with security that Salesforce didn't support or something like that, you could use a CASB, do a reverse proxy thing, and it was awkward. It could break. If Salesforce changed their application and the CASB, wasn't rewriting the pages right, things could break. But then we saw API approaches, and it was just all over the place. And I'm really interested to see what they're doing here because they've got the benefit of all that hindsight. And Weil Ventures are usually pretty shrewd investors, so I don't think they'd be invested here if it wasn't something really interesting.
Yeah, I think we're going to see an evolution of the old CASB into, we've already seen aspects of it with SASE and some of the other SD-WAN technologies and some of the capabilities, right? You don't need to necessarily be that pinch point to deliver some of these capabilities. And if you're distributing and scaling at the edge, like some of these other technologies are, this could be an evolution of CASB play.
I wonder if it has to be agent-based instead of all the proxies that we saw in the past with CASB, but I suppose we'll see.
That's a heck of a question, and if you look at the actual angels that are involved alongside Weil, that's pretty telling as well. Participation from George Kurtz, Akamai CISO Andy Ellis, Mike Sutton, former CISO Zscaler, which obviously he knows that market well, and Sunil Yu from also Weil, but Bank of America prior, and Amazon Whole Foods CISO Samir Sait was also in there. So there's a lot of really smart people in there, and I know they're not going to put their own personal money behind something that's not innovative and not unique.
When you see half a dozen CISOs throwing money in the same bucket, that's a good bucket sign to follow.
Yeah, and that there's a problem out there that hasn't been solved because that's why they're investing. They're looking for that next evolution technology.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Hyper raises $35 million in a Series C.
Yeah, moving up in the passwordless. I think I can't remember the last time we read out fundings and didn't have some kind of approach to passwordless here, which as we've been talking about, isn't actually passwordless. You're just moving the password to something that the user doesn't interact with.
Yeah, we're talking about that in our pre-record for next week.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's see. Intrigue.io. The Intrigue guys because you've been doing the attack surface monitoring work. $2 million. Is that a seed round or is that an A?
That's a seed.
No, it's a seed round. Yep. And that's it's exciting stuff. He's been working on this technology for years now, and and really smart guy. Background from Rapid7, Bug Crowd, most recently Kenna, and this is in the attack surface management market. And yeah, we'll have our own news on that market here soon. We did some reviews of products in this space, and one of them is Intrigue.
Yep. Cato Networks closes $10 million in funding. They did a funding round last year too, so this must be a Series B.
Are we getting so this is Cato Security?
Oh, Cato Security, not Cato Networks. Yeah.
So when I see it, I think Cato, because it looks like it's short for avocado, because there used to be this avocado-based ice cream, like a non-dairy ice cream called Cato. So whenever I see this name, I think avocado. But I know what you're talking about, Cato Networks. That's a different thing, and they do different stuff. This one's interesting. So they're saying your forensics lives in the cloud, and you can do disk acquisition from your cloud workloads, but also from your physical bare metal workloads, but store them up in the cloud. And I think it's something that you run in your own infrastructure. I don't think they do it as SaaS. They basically give you the software for it, the equivalent of an OVA or an AMI from the AWS marketplace. And so it's interesting because we haven't seen a whole lot of innovation, especially in the cloud, in the forensics and DFIR market.
Right. But with that cloud adoption, we're going to see more solutions going after some of those aspects, right? Have to. Yeah.
I just wonder if people are going to be comfortable. It's such an old school market, because if you got to work with the FBI, you need to have chain of trust and all that stuff, and you have to manage that. Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be any squirming about storing disk images in the public cloud.
Yeah. Our friends over at PlexTrack closes $10 million funding round. That's Dan DeCloss and team, the Purple Teaming folks. We did a custom podcast series with them on how to get work done in cybersecurity. Good to see that Dan and team got a funding round.
And it's a Series A. That's a healthy Series A.
It is, yeah. Talon Cybersecurity raises $25 million to develop the next generation cybersecurity for a distributed workforce. I'm not quite sure what that means. Sounds like a bunch of buzzwords to me, but.
Yeah, I did not read up on this one before, but Talon's unique technology turns security weaknesses into resilience. I don't know. I'm going to have to dig deeper to figure out what they're doing.
In the first chunk of that. Well, no, I don't, because in the first chunk of that story, down until it says story continues, pretty much tells you nothing about what they do, other than they secure a distributed workforce.
Right. And what does that mean? Does that mean you're an endpoint security solution? You're a SASE? You got to tell us at some point what the heck it is you actually do. I had the same kind of struggle with Darktrace a little bit, right? I know what Darktrace does, but if you go to their website, you're like, can you just say it in plain English for me, please? It uses like cyber AI and this, that. It's like, but what are you actually doing? That's all we want to know. Security professionals, like, what is it that you do?
Yeah, no, I just looked at the thing. There's nothing here. There's no meat.
It's another one for press release Hall of Shame.
Yeah. Let's see. Open source security management firm White Source raises $75 million. Here we are in the application security space. We know the White Source guys pretty well. We've done some briefings with them, and I think some interviews in the past with them. They're going after the open source, kind of looking for issues in open source. Again, Tyler, to your point earlier, we're going to continue to see this momentum in these AppSec plays.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to see momentum in the AppSec space, especially now that AppSec is being really reinvented in the what I call the GitOps model. I'm not surprised they took in a big chunk of money, because there's 2-3 companies I think really running for the new version of AppSec, and that would be SNCC, White Source, and potentially GitHub at some point, right? I think GitHub stands to really play in that space as well. So I think it's going to be a super awesome dogfight, better than the most recent UFC that ended in one round. So
Yeah, and GitLab is doing a ton in the space. You mentioned GitHub, but GitLab has been doing a lot of improvements in the space as well, like tying a lot of security testing capabilities into the CI/CD pipeline. They are a sponsor on Application Security Weekly. Again, you've got some of these big behemoths out there that are really doing some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'd be very nervous if I was playing in the AppSec swimming pool at this point in time, because GitHub/Microsoft and GitLab, for that matter, and SNCC to a degree, they all operate AppSec in a way that has never been done before. It used to be done in the CI/CD pipeline, and now it's not done in there. It's done in, the GitOps model, where it's on commit within the pipeline that might be running right out of GitHub. And so SNCC kind of pioneered that, and that's why they're doing very well and have some crazy valuation, like $4 billion or something. But I'd be very worried if I was SNCC too, because if GitHub wants to play, they can play, and GitLab too.
Yeah, that's true. There was another one here on CodeLogic, again in the application space, raising a $16 million Series A funding round. So that's a really big A.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you guys catch that Talon cybersecurity one? That $26 million was a seed round?
What?
Seed round? That's a huge seed.
What? Oh, you know why? Because it's Lightspeed Venture Partners and Team 8. Man, they like to spew money at anything these days. Lightspeed in particular, anything out of Israel, Lightspeed goes, yep, here, have an extra zero.
Wow. That's an extra zero.
Yep, that is an extra zero on the correct side of the decimal point.
Right.
Wow. Let's see. I want to go to a couple of these interesting stories. Like, so Dell's going to spin off VMware, and I worked at EMC as part of the RSA team under the Federation, right? That had VMware, had RSA security. Dell spun off RSA Security last year. Now they're spinning off their 81% stake in VMware. And what it's doing is, I thought it was really interesting, right? They value this at $52 billion. They sold RSA for $2 billion. So there's $54 billion of the $67 billion they spent for EMC. They're working down their debt pretty quickly on that acquisition.
Yeah, I don't think VMware has been VMware of old since Pat Gelsinger, the CEO, left. I think they expected Sanjay Poonen to step in and really kind of run the show over there, and that really never happened. And I just don't think they've been floundering quite a bit, over the years, over the last couple of years since that kind of went down, or last year since Pat left. So, they have to see some fundamental changes there, and I think spinning it out makes a whole lot of sense.
But I think containerization and the container platforms are really putting a dent into VMware's core business. I mean, think about this, right? Everything was VMware. Now we've taken virtualization to the next layer with containerization. They were doing some stuff with Pivotal on the side, on the container side, but I think containers and all these as a service platforms are really putting a dent into VMware's core.
Yeah, and to that extent, I think Palo Alto Networks is leveraging that to success with the Prisma Cloud efforts that they've put into play. I think, Palo Alto Networks is the exemplar with regards to reinventing an old business in a new way of doing things. They have done well at that, right? They've shifted from a traditional next-gen hardware device manufacturer and seller into a true cloud-first business, and I think VMware just struggled to match.
Yeah, I agree.
And just partially to remind myself, I was trying to remember what all VMware had, especially on the security side these days, and it looks like they're claiming to have a SASE offering at this point. I had forgotten that they acquired Carbon Black, so Carbon Black is in there, and I do believe they still have AirWatch.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so all those add up to 50-something billion.
52 billion.
There you go.
There you go.
Jump change.
Paid for the Carbon Black acquisition too, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's see. Israeli cybersecurity startup Cyberfish acquired by Cofense. This is a phishing protection company. It looks like a in-mailbox phishing prevention. We were just talking with Chris Cleveland from Pixum about his browser-based approach to phishing. This looks like it is integrated into the email inbox.
It didn't FishMe have that though, and they acquired FishMe, right?
Well, FishMe is
they had a
Cofense. They renamed themselves.
Oh, yeah, but they had a button you'd press in Outlook, a little.
Yeah, I thought that was just more
for the.
I thought that was just more for some of the awareness and phishing campaigns. I didn't know if they actually had capabilities in the platform. I mean, when FishMe went to renamed to Cofense, I think there was another acquisition in there, but I don't remember how far they went into phishing protection. This looks more like a traditional email phishing protection capability.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Phishing in a general sense, I think, hasn't been innovated really in forever. Like Pixum's doing something unique, but outside of that, I haven't heard. Or actually, Adrian, who did we have on a couple weeks ago that was doing the 2FA in real time? Do you remember who that was? They were within your inbox. They would 2FA your stuff if you got like a password reset.
Oh, no, I do not remember.
Okay, well,
not off the top of my head.
They're doing something cool and innovative when it comes to phishing. Pixum is, and other than that, I just haven't heard much in the phishing space that's unique. Oh, I just got the wonderful crew on the backside of Security Weekly just sent me a message. It's Material Security.
There you go.
Yeah, and they're doing really cool stuff. But other than those two companies, I just haven't heard much innovation in the email space at all. So I'm not surprised they just got snapped up and folded in. It could also just be a market, like give me some more customers and logos kind of acquisition.
Yep. Or it could be, I can't make a business at this and somebody quickly snap me up and integrate me in.
Yeah. You
never know, right? The terms of the deal weren't disclosed, so you can't, it's hard to tell.
Yep.
Zscaler still on the move. I mean, look, they acquired two of our sponsors last year in Cloud Needy, which is the first article, and then also the Edgewise folks, which is the second article. First one, Zscaler buys startup TrustDome to control cloud permissions. So this is entitlements above and beyond the Cloud Needy CSPM that they acquired last year, making a big move into cloud. Again, Tyler, to your point, right?
Yeah.
These companies have to move into these spaces, and you see Zscaler making some investments there.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things driving the overhyped valuations of startups in these specific markets. One is comps in the public market, right? So if you do happen to hit unicorn status and get the chance and the opportunity to IPO, your comps are astronomical because the market's so hot. But then add to it the fact that acquisitions are happening at a much larger dollar because of the requirement for some of these larger publicly traded companies to reinvent into the new model. And this is a great example. I didn't catch the price yet on this one, but I'm sure they overpaid for what they got. And that's not a slight on TrustDome not being any good. It's just that the only way an acquisition like this right now is occurring is it's happening at a multiple that's rather high.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I said the Cloud Needy acquisition in there. I don't think it disclosed a price for this one. No. The second Zscaler announcement is new innovations to the Zero Trust Exchange platform, and I think this is where the Edgewise acquisition got integrated into the Zscaler side of the platform. Again, some web-based attacks and data leakage, some more policy support around zero trust. We're going to see this kind of momentum continue. And what I like about Edgewise is the relationship between the user and the application, right? And the ability to apply policy at that granular level that really adds a level to zero trust beyond just the network layer.
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks like they're also announcing they're building like a community for CISOs, or it says CXO, call it revolutionaries. Trying to. I guess you see this anytime like a concept is just really difficult, to wrap your head around and to build a strategy around. So. They put together a whole community just around zero trust, it looks like.
Yep. Risk IQ in the news with some new capabilities, again, on this attack surface management side. You've got some insight here, too, I think, Adrian.
Yep. Yeah, and this is interesting because Risk IQ, and you find with a lot of the attack surface management products, straddle different worlds. So attack surface management, it has some similarities and some overlap with digital risk protection, which is looking for, on the attack surface management side, you're trying to gather up an inventory of all your stuff and make sure none of it's vulnerable. So almost like an extension of vulnerability management, but on the digital risk protection, you're looking for signs that attackers are setting up for a phishing campaign, or they've got a fraudulent app in an app store with your name on it and your branding or something like that. So this brings Illuminate brings components of both together. They haven't really had like an attack surface management offering, and this is kind of like almost like I think of it in terms of like a Splunk app on top of the data that they already have to kind of pull out some of those insights and display it in the way you would expect with a management platform, not just a research platform.
Yep. These last two stories I thought were interesting. There's been a lot of talk about Okta in the news, kind of expanding their capabilities into privileged access management and really going after, CyberArk and some of the other identity and access management platforms. And it's coupled with the second article on the Centrify and Thycotic merger that was announced, I think, last week. And we actually did a pre-record with Thycotic that's going to air next week, and we talk a little bit about that acquisition. But here's what I like, right? We're starting to see some consolidation of capabilities in these identity and user platforms. And I think what Okta's doing is very interesting because they've really come out of kind of the single sign-on, moving into PAM and some MFA capabilities. You take two best of breeds like a Centrify and the Thycotic privileged access, bring them together as a company. I think we're going to see a little more of this. I think some consolidation in identity and access management is coming.
Yeah. So I've got a few.
I'm pretty confident we're going to see a lot more of it, just because there's so many smaller point style things in identity still, and Okta's got to roll them up. The biggest players that are publicly traded have to roll them up to expand their product portfolios.
Yeah, and what's interesting with the Centrify and Thycotic one is you've got some big players in Thoma Bravo, some big players in the space bringing these entities together. Remember, all the acquisitions Thoma Bravo has been doing over the past few years, Logarithm and a few others. I mean, you could see some very interesting roll-ups coming back out on the other side at some point as this market continues to stay hot.
Yep.
Yeah. And we've seen some pretty big ones. I forget who it was that merged with or acquired Auth0. Anybody remember who the other company in that deal was?
That was, I think it was CyberArk.
Also started with an.
I think it was CyberArk. I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a pretty big one too.
Yeah. So this is what you're seeing. See, I've always said this for years. I'm like, privileged access, I get it, but all access has to be managed. And why do you have a separate solution for just privileged access when you have to manage all access across the entire environment? Why don't these two environments come together? Now we're finally starting to see those come together. I think that's good for the identity market because we've had, Tyler, to your point, we've had lots of innovation and point solutions, but how do you integrate all this stuff together to make it easier to manage?
Yeah, and I think that same thing's going to happen with identity markets. It's going to happen with cloud sec markets, app sec markets, and API sec markets, right? You got to figure out what your natural adjacencies are and pick them up when you're big.
Yeah.
No, it was Okta.
Okta. Okay. No, it was one of them.
Okta and Auth0.
Auth0. Yeah.
Yeah, that was $6.5 billion, that acquisition by Okta.
Yeah.
Big
numbers. Big numbers.
So
anything else you guys want to cover? Yeah. What'd I miss?
Yeah, I got a few more. There are a few tool releases that I'll just kind of rapid fire through. So AWS announced OpenSearch. They have forked Elasticsearch and Kibana. And from reading it, I didn't jump into it too deeply, but I got the sense that there's some change to Elasticsearch and Kibana. I don't know if they're forked closed but there was a lot of language like, keeping it open, that kind of thing. So either there was a license change or they closed it. I don't know what the commercial side of Elastic had done there that maybe triggered this. But yeah, OpenSearch is the name of that. Bridgecrew, who just got acquired by Palo Alto, just released 2.0 of their product, which I love the name. It's Chekhov. I assume it's a Star Trek reference. Given that the name of the company is Bridgecrew, right? Yes,
makes sense.
How could it not? But yeah, interesting seeing them. Usually you see the opposite. You see a bit of a slowdown during the acquisition process, but likely they had this. This was ready to go or in the works for a long time. Already had momentum behind it. And speaking of momentum, Rumble is already in the twos. Rumble 2.1 just came out, and I think I first used that product when it was in beta maybe 2 years ago. So no flies on HD Moore. He moves quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we talked to HD early on into the Rumble discussion. So to have it at 2.1 means he's making some progress.
And speaking of HD Moore, Rapid7 made its first open source acquisition, announced it this morning, of Velociraptor, their first one since Metasploit, which was nearly 12 years ago, which is when they originally brought on HD Moore. Yeah, so that's a big deal. Velociraptor is a very popular DFIR tool. It can do a lot of different things. I don't think you'd consider it EDR, but it can do a lot of. It can be used for forensics and for getting information off of endpoints, interacting with endpoints, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Rapid7's history on the acquisition side, I mean, outside the open source, I mean, they've been making a lot of adjacency acquisitions. Back to your point earlier, Tyler, right? Figure out who your adjacency are and start buying them up. I mean, Rapid7 has been executing on that for years. A very different approach than Qualys, who's built a lot of capabilities, and Tenable, who's done very little acquisition outside of the ICS IoT vendor acquisition. But man, Rapid7, they just keep buying stuff to integrate into that broader portfolio.
Yeah, there's very few companies that have the ability to truly innovate when they get to that size, and that's why acquisitions have to occur. I think if we get out of the security realm for a moment and talk about a company like Apple, they were able to do it because they intentionally made it a point to isolate innovation into its own centers and incubate essentially young startups within Apple to create new products, et cetera, et cetera. Most companies don't understand how to do that. They don't kind of take that long-term secondary or adjacent market view into what they want to build. And so that's why a lot of these guys are just, hey, we're just going to buy it and roll it up. And that's why we're seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, Adrian? Did we cover it all?
Last item I have is, I've been saying for a couple months now that, after I saw Beeple sell a piece of art, NFT for a piece of art for $69 million, I was like, the scams are coming. They're on their way. And sure enough, there's an article on here you can check out. I believe it was, it was us. It was SC Magazine. So part of CRA here. Got a great article on how the scammers have moved in on that. So you heard it here first.
There we go. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you for co-hosting with me today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next week on Enterprise Security Weekly.